Hey guys, here we go into a video on Eleider Alvarez for his upcoming fight against Sergey Kovalev. I'm going to try a new format. We're just going to be looking at clips today. We're going to be talking about his active guard, the way that he layers his offense, and then the way he layers his defense and defends himself overall, and just a few points that I kind of want to talk about for his style. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing we're looking at is his active guard, and we want to talk about how he controls the space between him and Chilemba. Now, if you notice, he's not really feinting a lot. He's not probing a lot, right? There's a lot of standing in front of his opponent. He's kind of moving forward just a little bit, but his head is basically in the same spot. Now, the reason that that's a bad thing is because look at how easy it is for Chilemba to feint him and go for that jab to the body, right? Even though he blocks it, right? He does a good job of blocking it. Chilemba feels comfortable throwing that shot because Eleider Alvarez is standing so still, which means that his opponents are going to be able to find him much more easily than if he was constantly moving, slipping, rolling, doing a lot of things to have a kind of a static defense that makes it harder for his opponents to find him. Now, one of the reasons for that is that it's important is because not only is that inherently going to give you defense because your opponent has to find your head first, the angles and the timings that you throw your punches on or your opponent's punches at you when you're slipping this way, rolling this way, boom, boom, giving them different looks, probing, shoulders, feinting, how often you feint and you do all that stuff is going to reset your opponent and make them have to think more on how they set up their punches. It's also going to stop them from setting their punches up, right? As you can see, Chilemba feints first and then shoots that jab to the body. It's going to stop them from setting their punches up as much because they think that they're going to catch you on one of these timings, right? They're going to wait for you to slip this way and be like, oh, next time he does that, I'm going to walk him into a right hand. Meanwhile, you're like this. You've seen that right hand from this active guard a million times. Boom, that right hand comes. Boom, you catch him with the left hook. That right hand comes, you slip, catch him with the right hand of your own. And you can have an inherent offense and defense off of it, as well as off of these timings, right? When you're slipping, you slip this way, boom, and the next time you slip that way, right, bop, you can slip with a jab here, right, boom, slip with the right hand here, oh, bam, and you can hide your offense and hide your defense with an active guard. And as we can see that Eleider Alvarez doesn't really have an active guard. He also has very basic feinting. One thing I want to talk about is feinting. Look at how he steps with his feint here. Really selling it, really committing with it, but then he also steps when he punches as well, and we'll see that here as he steps twice with his very basic offense. And the reason I say that it's basic offense is because he's not really layering his offense very well. He doesn't know how his opponent is going to react, and he hasn't used any layers, any feints, or any probes to figure out what his opponent's going to do and then react to that. Because you never want to throw your punches at your opponent when they're in position to defend themselves, right? That sounds like common sense, but a lot of fighters don't understand this concept, and it'll lead them to throwing a right hand or committing to a jab and then just getting countered by a fighter who's just a little bit better than them, and then it looks like a wipeout and then their whole career's over, whatever. But what I want to talk about is the layering of his offense. And check out the video in the description, you guys, about layering your offense and the different ways that you can do it. And you'll kind of have a better understanding of what I mean by layering your offense. But as you see, he comes out, he flashes the lead hand, Chilemba catches it, and then he goes for a jab to the body. Not really layering his offense, but giving his opponent a very basic layer with that first feint. But the problem with this first feint, in my opinion, is that he has to commit to the feint. So if Chilemba was already planning on waiting for the jab to counter it, all that Eleider Alvarez would have done is walk into that game plan. Now, this is really important because of the fact that Sergey Kovalev has knocked out probably 90% of his opponents countering their opponent's jab. And it looks so far that Alvarez has a very easily timed jab. As we can see, here he's feinting with his jab here, and then he shoots a jab here. So there's no layering on the second jab. The only way that he looks to set his jab up is by feinting him, looking at Chilemba's the layer of defense that he's looking to implore. And I have a video in the description, layering your defense. Check that out if you guys are unfamiliar with this term. But as you can see, he feints him, and Chilemba shows no signs of counterpunching, so he decides to shoot a jab. Now, this kind of defense doesn't really allow you to take advantage of your opponent possibly making adjustments, right? So say you get feinted this way, and then you're like, oh, he's setting up a jab, and now he comes in with that jab, and you, boom, you make an adjustment, and you catch him with the counter right hand. Your opponent doesn't really have a way with that style of layering to predict it and capitalize on it. So you can see that Eleider Alvarez is really putting himself out of position and taking a risk by probing with this style of offense. Now here you see him feinting with the jab here. And again, look at how he steps with his jab. Again, this is going to be a huge problem when he fights Kovalev. We'll talk more about that during the actual Kovalev breakdown. But one thing I want to point out here, and I left this clip here, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but the way that he defends himself, just so you can have this in mind, is by counterpunching. Counterpunching is a layer of defense, right? There are many layers. You can probe with your lead hand. Again, check the video out in the description if you want a better analysis of it. I think it's about like a 10-minute or 17-minute video. I'm not sure. But it talks about all the ways that you can control your opponent. But Eleider Alvarez electing to use counterpunching to layer his defense to make Chilemba not feel as comfortable throwing punches at him because of fear of getting countered. Now he has a good defensive responsibility right there, rolling the counterpunch from Chilemba because Chilemba is baiting him into throwing those counters. Throws a combination and then bodies up with him at the end. This is really important, and then moves off the line, right? But one thing I want to point out in terms of this defense, when he throws this right hand, he stays on the line with his opponent the whole time. So if Chilemba had thrown that left hook instead, or thrown that left hook and then followed up with a right hand after, boom, he could have caught him with a great shot. But we're going to move back onto the offense part. And here we have him shooting that jab to the body, no layers, right? He's not even feinting this time. He's not probing. He doesn't know how Chilemba's going to react. Now he's going to, again, shoot another jab, stepping hard with it, right? No layers on that jab either. Probing with this jab. And he flashes this jab and sees that Chilemba is catching the jab here. And now he flashes the jab, expecting Chilemba to catch the jab again, and then he goes to the right hand to the body. But one thing I want to point out, look at how he expects Chilemba to react, right? And Chilemba counters this time instead, right? This style of layer really doesn't allow you to account for adjustments that your opponent makes in between your feint and in between your actual attack. Luckily for him, he still adds that layer, and he doesn't wind up having to pay the price, but you can see how there's a discrepancy in how he thought his opponent was going to react and what actually happened. Now, it's not important that he actually still landed the punch and he didn't get hit with the shot. The important are the ideas here that he doesn't actually know, and he's putting himself out of position and at risk for a punch he doesn't even know he's going to land. Now, changing it up again, expecting him to start countering or expecting him to start catching the jab again and almost catching him with the right hand. It looks like it catches him here, but it really doesn't. If you watch it in real time, he misses. But showing that now instead of going to the body with that right hand, and instead of flashing that lead hand all the way out there, he gives him just a little bit of a feint. Same step, right? The same step here. So he's still fighting on that same stepping timing, which is going to be a very bad thing for him against Kovalev, and then shooting the right hand over the top. But slowly making adjustments to the way that he layers his offense and his timing. So it shows that he's thinking in there. Now, here's the problem with the way that you layer your offense and when you don't layer your offense. Again, this is still the first round. He steps with that jab, and Chilemba says, hey, I know what he's doing this time, and counters him with his own jab to the head and catches him with the shot because there aren't any real layers. He's not feinting. He's not probing. He's not able to get Chilemba to make a defensive posture before he actually attacks and winds up eating a shot here. Again, Chilemba feints him here, and then no layers on Eleider Alvarez's jab here, and Eleider Alvarez commits to the jab and walks into another jab of Chilemba's. We're going to see the same thing again. This is really interesting here. Now, this one shows that Eleider Alvarez is making adjustments, really fascinating. But he shoots the jab. Chilemba catches the jab, right? Then Chilemba looks to counter him like he's been doing. Eleider Alvarez catches that jab and then sets up a left hook of his own. Really fascinating stuff, and it shows that Eleider Alvarez is capable of fighting on this higher level, this multi-layer offense, right? So all the effort that he put into landing this left hook was based on knowing how his opponent was going to react, countering the jab. So he shot that jab, caught his opponent's counter that he knew was coming, and set up a counter for that. Like, that's really deep in those layers. But it's interesting that he doesn't know how to do that without committing to a shot. And that's going to put him in a lot of trouble against Kovalev. Now, here he is, the same level of feint, right? But he's just timing it a little bit differently this time, stepping with that jab. Chilemba goes to counter, right? And then realizes, oh, he's not throwing the jab, tries to bring his hand back, and kind of gets caught. I'm not really sure what he tries to do after he looks to shoot that jab, but he winds up getting caught with that right hand there. And you can see that slowly Eleider Alvarez is making adjustments to these layers, but it's still the same basic layer. As you see, he has to step with this shot. This is the same clip, by the way. He feints here, right? Sees how Chilemba reacts, right? Bringing his hands up like this. I don't know, like this, exposed here. And then he gives him the same feint right here, and then comes over with the right hand. So a slight layer, but again, he doesn't know how Chilemba is going to react once he breaks that first initial engagement of that feint. Moving on. Now here he is. Now this is how easy it is to start making adjustments. Notice how earlier we saw Alvarez shooting that jab and committing to it, and then Chilemba was countering him, so much so that he made up that three-piece combo of jab catch, catch his jab, hook, right? And now we have Alvarez saying, hey, jab me, come on, counter me, right? Whoops, there's actually two punches he does here. So he sticks the jab out here, steps with it. Chilemba doesn't want to counter him, sticks the lead hand out again, and Chilemba doesn't want to counter him. Chilemba's already made an adjustment, and that takes away a lot of Eleider Alvarez's offense here. Now we're going to get into Chilemba's defense. So what we learned about his offense is that he doesn't know how to layer it super well. He doesn't know how to layer it without putting himself in danger. As we saw, Chilemba was able to counter him a few times with the jab off of those timings. And Eleider Alvarez doesn't know how to layer his offense without putting himself in danger and get his opponent to react first. But now we're going to look at his defense. As we see, Chilemba is shooting a jab here to the body, and Alvarez catches it and takes a step back, right? Now, the reason that I included this particular clip is just because Kovalev has a great 1-2-1. And he throws it, jab, two, and then he kind of hops forward and comes in with his own cross like that. And he does it in every fight. It's really great. So if we ever find Eleider Alvarez moving back in a straight line like this, we can definitely figure that Kovalev is going to come in with the 1-2-1 and catch him with the shot. Now what I really want to talk about is the way that Eleider Alvarez defends himself, and we touched on it a little bit, and it's mostly with counterpunching. As you see, Chilemba shoots that jab, and it's not a real jab. He's not committing to it. He doesn't try to hit Eleider Alvarez, but Alvarez says, oh, he's shooting a jab. I got to counter the jab. I know how to counter a jab. I've seen the jab a million times. Comes in with that hook, misses with the hook, and then, because he's out of position, steps forward with his own jab, and Chilemba is able to counter him, right? And this is all off of Chilemba's jab, right? He gets Alvarez basically to commit to the first movement and put himself out of position and into a position where Chilemba can easily land that jab. Now again, the same exact situation. Alvarez countering him, right? Catching that jab, going for his own jab to the body, and then eating a jab to the head on the way out. What we're learning so far is that it's very, very, very easy to get Alvarez out of position, because not only because of the fact that he doesn't control the space between him and his opponent, he doesn't feint a lot, he doesn't probe, he doesn't have an active guard. So he has, because of the fact that his head is always in the same spot and always in the same line, he has to respect when his opponent is feinting him, and he has to respect when his opponent is attacking him. And it really puts him in some awkward positions, as we saw with these counterpunches, eating those shots because he understands he has to control that space. And the way that he looks to do that is with counterpunching. As we saw right there, looking to counterpunch with the hook there. Now this one again, Chilemba feinting here, right? And then Alvarez leans in with that right hand, tries to counter him. Chilemba ducks it, and then comes over the top with his own left hook. Now, the left hook doesn't land, right? It kind of hits Alvarez on the back first, right? And then scrapes across on his head. But the idea here is not that Chilemba is landing these punches, or these are hard punches, or these punches are effective. But the idea here is just understanding how Eleider Alvarez looks to defend himself. And then we're going to look at Kovalev and how he offends his opponent, and we're going to see if that idea is in line with and how it works out between the way that Kovalev attacks and the way that Eleider Alvarez defends, and we're going to see who is the more likely one to come out on top in those engagements. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the way that Kovalev defends himself and the way that Eleider Alvarez attacks his opponents with those basic layers, and then look at the counterpunching. So that's what we learned about Eleider Alvarez, is that he has no active guard. He's very slow in his guard, right? His hands are always here. He does a little bit of feinting, but when he does feint, he's going to do a feint first, and then after that feint, he's going to throw a combination or throw a punch. But he's very easy to time. His layering of his offense is very basic, and the layering of his defense is very basic as well, with only counterpunching. No active guard, no feinting, no probing. Yeah. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the fight. Let me know what you guys think about the film study. Let me know what you guys think about Eleider Alvarez as well. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the next video.